Okay, welcome to my PSA disclaimer. So in order to cover anything Battletech or Battletech adjacent, I need to come clean that it's completely impossible for me to be unbiased when looking at these kinds of games. And the reason for that starts 38 years ago from today, back in the year 1988.
I was there, Gandalf. I was there 3,000 years ago.
So in 1988, that's when I first hear of and start playing the Battletech game Crescent Hawk's Inception. Crescent Hawk's Inception was pretty cool. And this project, the Metal Mercs project, started off originally as a fan service or kind of like a way to revitalize this game that I played the hell out of. So a lot of the DNA that we'll see in Metal Mercs is based off of an old game that I loved as a kid in 1988. So it is very much rooted in my nostalgia brainstem and that center of the brain. So that's where it starts. But that is not at all where this ends, because after 1988 comes the next time that I fall in love with Battletech all over again. So now we jump ahead to 1993. And in 1993, I'm in the Navy with these idiots, and we are serving aboard the ship. So I'm in San Diego, and at the time we're San Diego, we're looking for anything we can do other than drink at morale, welfare, and recreation, because at the time I'm not even yet 21. I'm looking for stuff to do. So lo and behold, we find this center called Virtual World in San Diego, and Virtual World has these pods set up that allow us to play Battletech. Not only play Battletech, but play Battletech inside of this pod system that are linked together and allow us to actually control the mechs. Now, at the time, they were not the fancy version 3 version or whatever. They were just kind of like boxes with the game inside. But this freaking ruled and allowed us to, something to spend our money on other than, booze. And I played the hell out of that. Then 1996 rolls around, and in 1996, MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries comes out, and I'm back into PC gaming after departure. I'm out of the Navy at this point. I'm back into PC gaming, and we are going to something called LAN parties, which people might not be familiar with, which is where a bunch of people get together and neglect their hygiene and their health for a weekend or more, and play video games while local area network together. It was fueled by two things in that time, at least in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I was out of. It was fueled by the Little Caesars pizza deals, and of course, copious amounts of Mountain Dew. And so this is what we spent our time doing. A lot of times, every chance I got at least, was going and playing either this solo or going and playing this in a LAN environment with my friends. And until you have taken your PC that you have spent a ton more money on than your rent, for several months, and put it in the back of your car and wrapped it in pillowcases and blankets and hope that nothing happened on the way to your friend's house, and put every other logistical concern aside, you really don't understand what gaming's about. So fast forward again, and now we're in the year 2000. In the year 2000, guess what? Battletech pods are back. Virtual World had a center in Indianapolis that then shut down, and then the pods got bought up by Dave & Buster's in Cincinnati. So I was still able to play in Cincinnati. So we're going, and we have like league nights, right? Like everybody else would go to their bowling nights on Wednesdays or Thursdays. I had Battletech nights where I would go and meet up with my friends, and we would engage in Battletech against like solos or in other teams or whatever. So was it expensive? Yes. Was it fun? Hell yes. It was an amazing time. And my friends and I actually had a kind of an interesting tie-in to the lore of Battletech when we came to, like, a lot of the other houses would be like, oh, we're for Krita or Deviant or whatever. We were Team Bonsai. And if you're not aware, Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension is an amazing movie, but there actually is his lore. He's literally written into the Battletech lore. So if you go out to Sarna.net, which is the Battletech wiki, you can actually see there is an entry here on Team Bonsai that kind of goes into the history. This is canonically a tie into the Battletech universe, which is real dumb and real fun. That sets up, that's important context, because the other thing that happened in the year 2000 was the Cincinnati World Invitational for Battletech and Red Planet, the two games you could use and play out of these pods. So this is also the time that I have a Battletech website going on Angel Fire called Battletech Ground Zero, where I'd link to like all the other websites that were being run by all the other community members, and listed like the Hall of Masters, like when we had to go and do our trials, where we had 2 lives And you had, within those 2 lives, you had to defeat all 3 opponents before they blew up your 2 mechs. And if you succeeded, then you became a master. Like I mastered like the Avatar chassis back at this this level of play. So I had my website, which I will put, you know, a link to and everything like that. Well, it's on. I had to go to the Wayback Machine to find it. But you know, it was official and everything. Like I had the GIF of the Mad Cat, you know, walking, and then the fire and the flame, the old like Diablo flame GIF and everything on the website. It was choice. It was totally legit. So anyway, that's just the stage for the you know, the world invitation we have, where we have all these pilots from like, you know, all over the United States. We have Seattle and New York and Texas and Chicago, and all the pilots as far away from Japan come to Dave & Buster's for a weekend to basically go in solos and in team play against each other, in league play against each other. And the guys from Seattle had matching flight suits. These nerds had matching flight suits that were amazing, and they had comms. They had their own like walkie-talkie comm system. The rest of us are just like opening the pod doors and shouting at each other out of these stupid pods. All right, so we're shouting at each other out of these pods, but like it absolutely ruled because like it was so complex and so fun. Like you, like all these like buttons and everything like that, like went to coolant loops and like ammo and all this kind of stuff. And you had like, you know, your different screens and everything, radar and your weapon systems. And, you know, you could get ammo bay fires. You have to like eject your ammo or like flush coolant into certain areas in the mech to keep it running. And you literally had the torso twist. You had your right hand on the joystick doing your upper body, and your left hand was your throttle, you know, like almost like a flight stick kind of a thing on the left side, and then the foot pedals controlled your lower torso movement. It was the coolest thing ever. And then being like basically in single combat with somebody like that, or in team versus team combat, is still the most immersive and most like adrenaline heart pumping thing I'd ever done. Like, was it nerdy? Absolutely. Did it put my heart in my throat sometimes? Absolutely. So just imagine a bunch of nerds at Dave & Buster's like sucking down Cokes, you know, and there were rum and Cokes at the time, you know, by the gallon, and like shouting out of pods and having these tournaments and stuff. It was amazing. And probably the most like surreal thing is the team from Japan found out that me and my friends were team Bonsai. And let me just say this: if you've not had Japanese men wearing a Rising Sun like bandana on their head scream bonsai at you repeatedly and cheer for you when you blow up an enemy's mech, you have not lived a life. Trust me on this. That was the most surreal, magical moment I've ever had. Like, once they found out we were team bonsai, we didn't speak a lick of Japanese, and they spoke very limited English, but we became best friends for that entire weekend. And I've never been happier in my entire life to represent my fictional team, because that was just a very surreal, amazing experience and one of my favorite memories of all time. But the next year that the Wayback Machine brings us to is 2013. And in 2013, a very important and influential game came out. That was MechWarrior Online. And I loved MechWarrior Online. I loved it because it really brought home, it was the first time I really had that LAN experience, and the first time since really the 2000s that I had, and back in my, you know, Dave & Buster's and Virtual World days, that I had actually literally sat down and played another MechWarrior game and found a community. I actually ended up playing with some guys. We've had a crew called the Wolf Spiders Battalion. I ended up doing a podcast. So I had a short-lived, but I think fairly popular at the time, podcast called Drop Command that I did with some friends. And then the Wolf Spiders Battalion and I, again, we had our league nights. We had our official times that we would show up and practice together, and we would actually do competitions against other units. And I'm still kind of in touch with some of those guys today. A lot of them are still on my like Steam's friends list, even though we don't really play much anymore, and kind of life has got us apart. But like, that was a really cool time. And I, you know, my then fledgling YouTube channel at the time, I not only did the Drop Command podcast, but I had a couple other series. I had one that was called Trial by Fire. So in the Trial by Fire series, I would take a look at like stock mechs, right? Like this Jenner JR7 like F like Champion Edition, and I would say, okay, cool. If you buy this stock mech, how good is it right out of the box with no upgrades and you know, nothing, no add-ons, anything like that. And then the other series I had was Pimp My Mech. And in Pimp My Mech, I would literally sit there and take a mech and then do 3 levels of customization that, you know, basically weapon systems and things like that you could buy to basically customize the mech. And I would do a bronze, silver, and gold level of investment. and then basically do a mission, like run missions to show like how effective that mech was with that different like tiers of investment. And so I loved it. I had a lot of fun doing that, and that was a super fun time in my life. Unfortunately, that came to an end right around the time that PGI decided they were going to start selling $500 gold mechs. But this really killed all the enthusiasm I had for the game. The one parting shot on what I loved on the way out is that people who were buying the gold mechs were getting ganged up on and just completely obliterated and team killed constantly for even having one. So that gave me still hope and faith in humanity, even if I had lost my faith completely in PGI at the time. And that takes us up to 2018. And in 2018, probably one of the coolest games that I've ever played and one of my all-time favorite games in my entire life came out. That being the official Battletech game. And Battletech is a game that I have 2,200 plus hours in, and I adore this game. It's one of my favorites of all time. It's turn-based strategy. It's amazing. That brings us now to 2026. So in 2026, we've got basically 2 games that I'm already keeping my eye on. One is Menace. Menace is, tangentially related to mechs in that it has walkers, and you are playing a mercenary company, very similar to the Battletech game from 2018, where you are basically managing a mercenary company in a section of hostile space and taking contracts and trying to survive. And you can get walkers, which are their mech adjacent things, and it has the turn-based tactical systems that Battletech 2018 did. And then the second game, obviously, is Metal Mercs. And Metal Mercs is what takes us full circle back to that time 38 years ago. That's why when I look at this game, not only because I backed it, but because of all this history that I've spent this time going into with you, it is virtually impossible for me to be impartial when I'm looking at this game. So if that's what you're expecting, I'm sorry. But if you can bear with me and understand that, and understand the lens I'm seeing this game through, then I think we'll have a good time together. But anyway, that's my disclaimer. Thanks for, and that's my TED Talk, I guess. Thanks for watching.